I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we are recording this podcast, the Bidjigal and Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay respects to elders past and present and extend our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from all nations of this land. Amy V, welcome to the Pick Me Up podcast. It's so lovely to have you on.
It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know, Amy V is very active in the listen up music space. She is a Newcastle-based artist.
Correct.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself as an artist and everything that you do in that space?
Sure. So I have been quite an active singer-songwriter for over 20 years now, which feels a bit scary to say. I don't really define myself by any particular genre because I feel like singer-songwriter kind of covers a lot of things. But my music does tend to be more kind of, I guess, guitar-based and more in the space of kind of acoustic instrumentation. So I often get put into like indie folk or sometimes a little bit of dream pop because it's quite kind of down-tempo and ethereal. That's not intentional. That's just how it comes out. And I've just learned not to fight that. That seems to be where things like to sit. So, so I've been writing and performing my own music for a long time, but I also work in different musical spheres. So I work as kind of a hired gun for other people in their bands because I play a few different instruments. I've been fortunate to tour with lots and lots of different artists, which is super fun, and it keeps me active and keeps me kind of match fit, I suppose, in terms of, my instruments and my craft.
Yep.
And I've dabbled in a little bit of theatre and stuff too. Actually recently wrote some music for a play by a brilliant playwright called Vanessa Bates, who's from my neighbourhood.
Yep.
And we put that on last year, which was really, really fun.
Awesome.
So, kind of starting to spread out into other spaces, but predominantly, just performing as a solo artist.
And did you say you just got back from a tour? Or you're currently kind of touring each weekend?
Yeah, I'm sort of like away all the time now. Almost every weekend. I have children, so I can't be away for too long. Yeah. So I go out and do these little bursts. I was recently over in WA doing some shows over there and heading off to Victoria lots this year and South Australia and all over the place. But it's busy, but it's fun.
So busy. When you're writing, and just going back to your sort of singer-songwriter style, do you have a process? What is your process?
It does vary a little bit every time. I never really know when it's going to strike. And sometimes it's a musical idea. So sometimes I'm just, fumbling around on a guitar and I discover something that kind of gets my interest. Or sometimes it's a lyrical idea or some words that I've written down somewhere or I've read somewhere that might spark something. Actually, during COVID, I found myself reading a lot of like classic literature to just try and find some kind of lyrical inspiration, because when you can't go out and experience the world, it's hard to find that.
Where do you get it from? Yeah.
And it became very kind of insular. All the writing that I was doing was about what was going on in my head. So I was like, I got to get out of this space. And so I started, just kind of picking up whatever I could find and found some inspiration through other stories, and quite old stories as well, which is fun. But
it's so fascinating.
In short, different every time.
And when you're recording, do you work with one producer in particular? Do you do it yourself? Does your team vary, or you stick with the same people that you're familiar with?
I have been working predominantly with the same producer for the last 10 years or so.
Yep.
A guy by the name of Gareth Hudson, who has a studio called Hazy Cosmic Jive in Newcastle.
Yep.
Named after the David Bowie lyric.
I was like, is that making that connection there?
Yeah. He's absolutely brilliant. And I think it's really important when you're working with a producer that you find someone who's kind of on your wavelength and who can get pretty quickly to what it is that you're trying to express. And often that's, where things kind of break down, I suppose, between the artist and producer, is it's just not translating properly. But he always seems to know exactly where I'm coming from. And I can come in with either really well-formed demos or even just kind of very vague ideas, and he picks them up really quickly and and we work really well together collaboratively. He plays lots of instruments as well, so between the two of us, we can
cover
kind of
everything.
put a song together pretty quickly. So I'm really lucky. I have been dabbling a bit in some self-production as well. I don't really have a lot of resources at home, and I live with my family, so not a lot of quiet space either. But I'd love to do more of that in the future.
It seems to be something that's becoming more and more popular, is getting into that sort of producing space.
I think it's a lot more accessible now than it used to be. You used to have to go into a studio to record, whereas now anybody with a decent kind of laptop and a door and a microphone,
technology.
and it's all kind of in the box now, so a lot easier for people to produce stuff from home. But I actually really love the experience of being in a studio and just being in a very dedicated space to create, and having all the kind of tools at your fingertips, and working with someone who's very good with those tools. There's something really kind of magical about that.
I agree. Me not being a recording artist myself, but just like I watch a lot of like documentaries and watching them in the studio space, and just like I'm like the team environment and like how it's all done, and just that to me is just such an interesting and exciting atmosphere to watch that's been created.
And I think sometimes people don't realize how much work actually is involved in that. It kind of looks like this very glamorous process, but it's actually can often go on for many, many hours. And sometimes you can really battle with things, it's just, you just can't find that right sound, or you just can't get that right performance that you're looking for. And when you're working in a band situation as well, when there's other musicians involved, and really kind of refining that sound can take a lot of time, and can even be quite stressful sometimes. So,
oh my God. Getting it right.
It's not all kind of super
the
glamorous.
smoke and mirrors. I'm really interested to talk to you about mental health in the music space.
Sure.
So I want to do our little top 3 now, and then jump into that space, if that's okay. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of you as an artist, or anything that you're working on currently that's coming up?
I'm just working at the moment on writing some new songs. So my last release was a live album I did that came out at the end of 2023. So I didn't release anything last year because I was so busy with touring. And I've kind of got this backlog of new songs that
That's exciting.
really want to share. So I'm just in the process of trying to get that stuff down and hopefully release something this year.
And then tour.
And then more live stuff, which is that's what I love. That's where my heart is,
How do you find, and we just a couple of it comes up in quite frequently in episodes, is not just being the artist, but balancing all of the social media, the artist, the touring, the gigs. How do you manage all of that?
Often with great difficulty. It is really tricky. We do have to wear a lot of different hats these days, and I'm completely self-managed, completely independent. So everything that you see, whether it's on social media or on stage or at the merch desk, it's all I'm behind all of it.
That's so impressive,
which is huge, and a lot of people are doing that now. It's a tricky kind of model to operate under, but I think I've learnt a lot, given that I've had so much experience in the industry. I've picked up a lot of stuff along the way, and you make mistakes and you learn from them, and you kind of gradually get better at it. But,
sure.
Yeah, I would love if my job was just to walk onto the stage and perform the songs.
That's the dream, isn't it?
That is the dream.
So top 3.
Yeah.
Top 3. Your topic is desserts.
Well, I love desserts.
I was going to say, are you a dessert person to start with?
Big sweet tooth, yes. Well, I think there'd have to be something kind of citrus based. I'm a big fan of like
a lemon tart?
meringue or a lemon tart.
Oh, yeah, lemon meringue.
All about that.
Yum.
I do love a good sticky date pudding. Actually, my mum makes.
I was going to say
the best.
My mum doesn't make it, but she is a fiend for a sticky date pudding. My mum, she loves it. We'll go out and she's like, sticky date pudding? I'm like, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I'm
really?
a tiramisu.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah.
And I was going to say cannelloni. Cannoli.
Yes.
Not the pasta. The pasta is also great, but the cannolis with the ricotta in them.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Italian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Yum.
And I'd probably say something to do with salted caramel.
Oh,
I'm a
yes.
big
Have you
caramel
had the Lindt salted caramel dark chocolate?
Yes.
That is probably, that'd be one of mine, I reckon. Because
Yeah.
I don't feel as guilty eating that. I don't know why. I'm like, it's dark chocolate.
It's weird, isn't it? Because caramel is essentially just sugar.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's a good top 3. So sticky date pudding, some sort of citrusy meringue, lemon, lime.
Yeah.
And
Salted caramel.
Same.
Anything in those
In that realm
categories.
of... What about if you were to choose an ice cream? Are you a citrus ice cream person? Because that's where I go, citrus.
I probably would go more with the caramel.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The salted caramel. Oh,
Yeah.
yum. You're just so distracted by dessert now. I was like, I'm not such a dessert person. Yes, I am. When I think about it. So I'm going to ask you on the podcast, we have a big question.
Okay.
And the big question is, how are you without saying good? Because naturally, I think everyone's busy, everyone's doing things. So the natural response is, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I think my natural response is busy usually. Yeah. I would say, what's another word I could use? Stretched.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I actually was just explaining earlier to someone that I feel like I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions at the moment.
Yeah.
So
and that's
stretched
hard.
is probably a good way to describe that.
That is a good word to describe. And touring on the weekends and having kids at home.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you manage all of that? What do you do to look after yourself is probably a better way to phrase that question.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good in the self-care department. I mean, when you're a parent, you know, you're always putting other people before yourself, and you kind of have to in a lot of situations. But I'm pretty good at knowing how to just kind of decompress and switch off when I need to.
Yeah.
Or focus on, you know, caring for my kids or whatever the case might be. But yeah, somehow, I don't know, I make it all work. People say it to me all the time. They're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't actually know. It just happens.
I just do.
And I think maybe I've just come to accept that things will work out. You know, the more you do that, the more you kind of try to fight that, I suppose.
And spend less time stressing over it.
Yeah.
Do you think it took you a long time to sort of get to that point, or have you always naturally sort of been like managing many things at one time?
Yeah, I think I have.
Yeah.
And I actually feel a bit strange when I'm not juggling multiple things.
Me too.
I get a bit kind of lost. And
Me too.
I find it really hard to sit still for a long period. I'm training myself to be better at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of... And then when I do have downtime, I often don't know what to do with it.
Neither. I'm
like,
so bad at it.
Should I clean? Should I write something? Should I, you know... and then you get that, exactly what do they call it? Analysis paralysis. Where
there's so many things and you're
so many things that I actually stop and do nothing. Yeah.
So you're very active. So you're doing a PhD and it's very active in the mental health and music space. Is that right?
Yeah, it's right in that space. It's on musician wellbeing. So.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where your interests are lying in that space at the moment?
So I have a background in psychology. I did my undergrad in psych and I worked in a kind of mental health promotion role for over a decade. And I kept finding these little spaces between sort of mental health and, well, the performing arts more broadly. I was involved in some research several years ago and a couple of different projects that kind of bridged those two areas. And I just felt like it was somewhere I was meant to be, you know, having the experience in both mental health and music. I'm like, I feel like there's something I need to be doing here. So during COVID, when I couldn't go and perform or do much at all, I actually took up some postgrad study in mental health and I wrote a paper which was a scoping review of the way that musicians, and particularly kind of musicians in that professional popular realm that I'm in, how they interact with mental health interventions. Because I'm like, nobody's really talked about how this works for us and what supports are there, but also how do we respond to them. And what I uncovered essentially was that there wasn't a lot of research in that area.
Yeah, right.
And the little tiny bit that existed kind of advocated for, I guess, more kind of tailored accessible types of support for musicians, because we do have difficulty engaging with the regular kind of streams of mental health support. And we have a whole host of different challenges. And a lot of those are occupational, a lot of risk coming from things like not getting enough sleep, not eating properly, working ridiculous hours, access to alcohol and other substances, and the list goes on. And so, and just a general kind of lack of regulation and safety for musicians in their workplaces. So that was really enlightening. And some people from the university said, oh, this would make a really interesting PhD topic, because there's definitely a research gap there.
Yep.
So I started doing some investigating, and I'm like, well, I've already done this review and I've already kind of turned up all of the research that exists on this that I can find. And it's not giving me a lot of answers. It's telling me a lot about the problem, but it's not giving me any solutions. And that seems to be the case more widely, is that, there's a lot of great goodwill in the music industry even to try and address these issues, but nothing is really working. And in fact, we're seeing the same or increased rates of things like depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and, substance use issues. So we're not seeing any kind of change, even though there's lots of great things being done. So I'm like, maybe we need to look at this from a different angle. And so I started doing a bit of research in the area of positive psychology, and I sort of came to realize that there's no real discussion about how musicians actually thrive, or how there are certain people that exist out there. Well, there has to be a proportion who are actually doing quite well, who are managing their mental health really well, and potentially even, flourishing. So that's going to be, basically the population that I'm trying to tap into.
Yeah.
Like, how do we leverage some of that?
Yeah.
Well, it will be. I haven't,
and
I
so
haven't started that part of it yet. I've just mainly been looking at this area of discourse, and I've just written another paper, which I'm hoping to get published soon. But really excited about diving in and doing some interviews with people, and, finding out what we can tease out.
Yeah. So you sort of, in that sort of, with the positive, what did you call it?
Positive psychology.
Yeah. Like using that using the people who have the positive psychology to support people who don't?
Yeah, well, so looking at what their resources are, what is it that helps them to stay in that space?
Yeah. And
can we use that somehow to help others who are maybe struggling to do that?
I actually think that is a huge part as to why I am involved in Listen Up Music and wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I, so fortunately have a very positive psychology and very good at looking after my mental health and staying in a very positive place most of the time. And that was the big thing to me. If I could do this podcast, to be able to bring that into a bigger space.
Yes.
And that was what I said to Ali. I was like, I don't have any experience as a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor, but I do have a positive psychology most of the time. So if I can help pass that on.
Yeah.
Or, just at least talk about it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about this whole concept, is that it does have that focus on what are the things that pick you up, and there's plenty of other discussion about the other stuff. Yeah. Not enough about this, I think.
So interesting. Yeah. I'm so interested. I'm just so fascinated by that. Like, you're right. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone who has talked about the positive psychology.
And it's interesting, because when we even use the term mental health, most of the time we're talking about mental ill health. Yeah. And when people, say, oh yeah, I've had some experience with mental health, they're usually talking about negative experiences. So even the way we use the word is quite interesting.
It is. Yeah, it does. And even me would just be like, oh, if you mention mental health, I automatically, I do flip to naturally, oh, what have you gone through? I guess is probably the best way to.
What are the challenges? Yeah.
Wow. I'm really excited to read that paper.
Oh, thanks.
Your next part was just building the community, and I guess that kind of connects to your paper in a way.
Yeah.
Did you want to touch on that a little bit and what you kind of wanted to talk about there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons I love being involved with Listen Up Music is that's essentially what we're all about, is bringing people together and creating that sense of community and connection, which is often lacking for people you know, like myself, who are freelancers, you're often sort of working in isolation, and we forget sometimes that there are lots of other people like us and that we're actually all kind of in the same boat. We're trying to navigate through the same waters. And by coming together and sharing information and knowledge, you know, we kind of, it's that, what's the expression? The rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that same kind of concept.
Yeah.
And, you know, in my own music as well, I've found, and it's taken me a long time to get there, but I've found that really what I'm doing it for is connection.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I love performing live, is because you get that immediate response, you know, and you get to see people's faces, and you're both sharing this experience that it's a moment, and it won't ever happen in the same way again. And there's something so special about that, and so magical and so uplifting. Yeah. Even if you're singing a really sad song, or, you know, it's just, you have that human connection.
And I think you see that, sorry to jump in, you see that a lot in the songwriting prize when there's those nights and everybody is not necessarily singing about a positive experience. Some are. Yeah. But there is a positive energy in the room.
Oh, absolutely. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, of course.
There was an artist that performed at one of our events last year, and she was actually very, very vulnerable on the stage. She said something along the lines of, I wrote this song when I was in a good place, but I'm actually not in a good place right now, and it's really hard for me to do this. And there were people in the audience who actually called out to her and were like, you got this, like, you can do this, we're here for you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I was there witnessed
at that particular event. Yeah.
anything so beautiful. I was just like, this is what it's all about. Yeah. This is why we're here. Yeah. And I felt really proud in that moment of like that we got to that point where people were having those kind of experiences and feeling supported. And and she was special. Amazing after that. And I think that's such a special thing to see. Oh, just absolutely. Humans, you know, just being like so positive. But for something like what you were saying before, such a positive atmosphere and supportive in what is sometimes looked at as like, oh, you're singing about something sad, it's got to be a challenge or whatever. And it can feel really uncomfortable and really, like I said, really vulnerable, but just, the audience was just completely with her. And I just, felt great that we provided that safe space, you know. Yeah. And that community has just evolved on its own. Quite separately from us, you know. We just facilitated the space, but it's all kind of happening quite organically. It's really beautiful. Yeah, and Listen Up is sort of like doing a whole bunch of new things this year. Yeah. Again, I could just feel like the community is getting bigger and bigger and more things are happening. I don't know if you can talk about any of the stuff that's happening this year. You probably know a little more than I do. But yeah, well, I think, you know, we've always wanted to expand what we deliver, our programs. And the Songwriting Prize is, you know, this is the 10th year this year, which is really exciting. So yeah. And it's the thing that we're best kind of known for, but we've got so many great ideas about other things that we can be doing. And it's great to see some of that stuff starting to come to fruition, you know, things like Illuminate, you know, those songwriting and producers workshops, and this podcast, you know, it's been great to watch this grow and get such a beautiful response from the community. And we've got lots and lots of ideas, and it's always just been about, you know, how do we keep the ball rolling? And thankfully it just seems to keep building and growing. And I hope that we can continue to do that. Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that I got roped in. I'm glad too. And I think I've probably said it before, but I think it's just the environment that everybody, and you know, like that's how I met Athanasia, that's how I met Chrissy, who was here before. Yeah. And just like also for young artists who are super fresh on the scene, to have that space that they can come to where there's all of us who have got this bond that we've sort of built, and to pass that on and see the positive connections and the effects that that's having on everybody in their work in the industry. Yeah, absolutely. And I wish something had have been around like that when I was a young emerging artist, you know, because it was a lot tougher back then. Like, it's a very different industry now too, but there was just this kind of gatekeeping of everything. Yeah. So you always felt like you were kind of locked out of things if you were an independent artist. Yeah. And I'm so glad that it's not like that now. We're starting to see this better support of each other and just, you know, like I said, sharing of resources and knowledge and support.
Do you think social media has had a positive impact in that way? Like things are more accessible, communities are easier to build because the reach of communication is broader?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, that has its challenges as well, though,
So many
because
challenges.
you know you
I'm
get
so bad with
social
social media.
media is like you get throttled everywhere too, unless you're spending lots of money. And of course, most independent artists don't have
Any money.
a lot of money, so it is still a real challenge. But I guess that's another reason why I've really loved doing live performance is that you actually get that direct communication with people. You don't have to go through, you know, all these kind of obstacles to get to people, and they get to know you as a person as well. And obviously online, it's a different way to communicate with people. There's sort of people put up barriers and they hide behind their social profiles a little bit. Well, when it's just people in a room,
Yeah.
you know, it's just you.
Humans.
And
being
yeah,
humans.
exactly. And you get to be more human. And
Yeah.
and I
the
think people
rawness.
really like that too. They like
Yeah.
to see that side of you. It's not all kind of filtered and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's spoken about too that like a lot of people are like, oh, it's so much easier to just like, you know, send a message or an email. But I do think once they're actually in that environment, they realize what has been missed.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I just
yeah.
feel like I mean, even like I'm definitely guilty of that too. I'm like, oh, it's so much easier to just like flick up an email or send a text message or like.
I'm the same. Yeah, I'm exactly
like,
the
when
same. I'm a highly anxious person, so even the thought of having to make a phone call is actually really terrifying for me sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's different though in a music performance situation. I don't know why, but that all kind of melts away. Again, maybe it's just because I've done it so much. And
Your
it feels
comfortable
familiar.
place, maybe.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is totally like a
Yeah.
safe place for me.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on in my life, that's if I'm on a stage, I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a nice feeling.
Yeah.
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 Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we do scenario?
No, let's get into it.
All right, we're going to do scenarios, Amy.
All right, let's do it.
Your scenario is you have just witnessed or seen the greatest show of your life and you just walked out of, let's just say it's like a whoever your favorite artist is, stadium tour or like small, intimate basement tour, whatever your favorite event is.
Yeah.
What is going to be your reaction when you walk out of that venue?
I'm going to physicalize what would probably just be inside my head.
Okay.
Are we doing it together?
We're going to do it together. I'm going to count down. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on the podcast. It's been so nice to talk to you.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure.
You've opened my brain to
Oh, wow.
just a whole different side of how I normally look at things. I feel like really positive.
That's awesome.
Which is nice.
I love that.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Woo.
you.
Yay. Bye.